people. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to talk about 10 iconic houseplants that are going to be trending, in my opinion, in 2023. And I think that these 10 houseplants will enhance any home's interior design look, and I think will become more popular and start trending more in the new year. So the first plant that I want to talk about is the Tetrasperma. I'm gonna put pictures on the screen for some examples of the ways that I feel like these plants really enhance a space. And so for this one, I really just feel like this plant adds like an extra something special to a room. I think that it's such a unique plant because it sort of like, it's almost like an outline of the room. Like it sort of creates a space, like a shape. And it's just so like angular sometimes. Like I feel like a Tetrasperma can be like a bushier plant, but it can also be like a straight line. And I just find that to be so interesting and cool. My Tetrasperma is just like one stalk, and it just sort of like creates an angle in my space and sort of outlines a corner. And I think that this plant, like the Tetrasperma, is just so unique and so different from other plants in that there aren't that many plants like it. It just kind of accentuates your space in a way that like adds height, but it also like really fills up the space. And so that's the number one plant that I think is going to pop up in like interior design in like people's homes and like start trending in 2023. The second plant that I want to talk about and show a couple different ways of styling it is the Philodendron Fuzzy Petiole. So when I first got this plant, I wasn't like super in love with it, but over time, now that I have some larger leaves, I feel like I really have started to, this plant has definitely like climbed up my list of favorite plants. And I just feel like this plant has sort of like a dark botanical vibe in a way that really kind of sets it apart from a lot of the other plants that I have and that other people might have. Like I feel like the only other plants that are sort of similar to it might be like a Gloriosum, like a Mame. It's not really like the Verrucosum, but I think it's different than the Verrucosum because the Verrucosum is sort of like neon, and this sort of just kind of like blends in, but it's also a statement. And I think for some reason it gives me like old world vibes. Like it kind of looks like it isn't like it doesn't have like super modern vibes. And so I think the petiole is sort of, I feel like it pairs well with like an antique sort of like vintage vibe, and I think I'm picking up that from it. The Schefflera, and I feel like this plant is really underrated, but I think it's really cool because it can sort of be like a small plant or it can be a tree. And I think that as it ages, it gets to be really cool and interesting looking as a tree. And I think it kind of has like a minimal look to it and can sort of fit in a lot of different spaces and with a lot of different vibes. But I feel like it sort of merges kind of like an outdoor-indoor feel because it can sort of grow into a tree. But yeah, I think it can also be styled really cool with like a wabi-sabi kind of vibe, and I think that it definitely sort of just creates a nice energy in a space. Number 4 for me is the Pothos Enjoy. And yeah, I think like this plant, it's definitely kind of like it's less of a statement to me. I feel like it blends into a space in a way that accentuates it but isn't like too loud, sort of almost like an ivy does. But I think I really like what it does to a space. Like, I really like this image of it on a dresser. I feel like it's just enough for me to like make enough of a statement to like add something to the room, but it's not too loud. It's not like a giant monstera in the room, but I think it's like a little more interesting than a pothos or a philodendron, a trailing philodendron, and I like that it kind of creates like an ethereal vibe. So another thing that is like kind of classic, but I think I'm most interested in like a specific type of cactus, and I'm gonna say like a wonky cactus, which is to me like a really lanky, weird, with many arms and limbs and legs type of cactus. I think is gonna come up more in interior design in 2023, and I have a couple, not to like the extent of the images that I'm showing that are like huge cacti, but I like that. I mean, obviously it brings in like desert energy, but I think it also like fills up the space, and like to me is like a display of like longevity. Like it means like you're gonna be in a space long term, or the plant has been growing for X amount of years. I mean, obviously I know people can buy cacti pretty big, but they're very expensive and hard to come by, and so it's kind of like, to me, like it's an elite plant to have a very large cactus. And not that cacti are really slow growers, I just feel like it takes a while to get a really big one. So that's number 5, the wonky cactus. And that could be anything from like a puntia to like the candlestick, like the Peruvian like so many different options in this range. Okay, number 6 is jade trees. I think that in the same way that a cacti represents like longevity, I think jade trees do as well, because like it's mine and my partner's like goal to have a jade tree that like we can like pass down to future generations. And I think that jade trees kind of have the charm of a bonsai tree, but it's like less maintenance in a way. I mean, some people say that jades are a little tricky, but I find them to be kind of low maintenance because you really don't have to do that much. I can honestly like let it dry out for like 2 to 3 weeks and it's fine. I realized I had done that and I had to like emergency water my largest jade today, so I had to do that. But anyways, I think that they sort of like, I like that the stems on jades will start to look woody after a while, and like sort of, it's just like a wholesome vibe for me with jades, and they just have a really, like a jade tree specifically, they have a really unique character to them, and there's so many different kinds that you can go with. And I don't know, something about them in the same way that with a bonsai, I feel like they represent like a very like seasoned plant caretaker. Even though they're kind of easy, I just feel like they are like distinguished gentlemen of plants, if you know what I mean. So a couple more before I close out the video. I think that in 2023, I mean, terrariums have been like trending for a while. I mean, people are like making TikToks and etc about terrarium plants, and to me terrarium plants I kind of view in like 2 sections. Like there's like wet terrarium plants and there's like dry terrarium plants, and it's like cacti succulent kind of variations in a terrarium, and then there's kind of like mossy wet ferns terrarium, so I feel like it can go either way. But I think people really are getting into them because to me it's like woodland vibes, like cottagecore almost, because I feel like people are putting like little fairies and like gnomes and stuff in their terrarium. So I feel like that's going to continue to be an interior design trend in 2023 is terrariums. I personally, I think sometimes they can be cute. I'm not like super duper into them. I do have a little tiny container of moss that I'm trying to sprout. But that's kind of like the extent of my terrarium exploration. I do think they're really cool, and I think that it's like a very like niche kind of part of the plant world that I respect, but I'm not like super into. I did have a succulent terrarium once and then ended up splitting up all the tiny succulents into separate ones. But anyways, I'm gonna show some cool examples, or I probably already have, because I'm gonna move on to the next one. And that is the heartleaf philodendron. I was so sad when mine got spider mites, and I ended up just like donating it to someone that could try and save it, because I didn't have time at the time to try and save it. But I just think that the way that like a heartleaf philodendron like can hug a wall or like climb a wall, it can be trailing or like climbing, I think it's so versatile and it's so classic, and it's like can go in so many different spaces in different ways, and is just so classically beautiful that I feel like it adds so much to a space. And I really want one again. I feel like my personality is a heartleaf philodendron, and I'm really sad I don't have one anymore. I have a lemon lime one, which I don't really like as much. But yeah, heartleaf is kind of like a little more special than a pothos in my opinion, and I guess I don't really have a reason why, but I think it like it's less outdoorsy than an ivy, and it's less basic than a pothos, and so I think that it's kind of like a happy medium, and it just does a lot, and it can sort of like take up a very like specific space with its shape. I just see it a lot of times like sort of mirroring the amount of space that it has. Like it really just adapts to the space I think it's in, and that's I think why I like it so much. Okay, almost done. This is gonna be a short-ish video for me that's gonna come into style in 2023, or like just like a general trend that I'm gonna see a lot is indoor ivy and like bringing outdoor plants indoors. I'm gonna show a couple other examples, like not just ivy, but more on like the theme of bringing outdoor plants indoor. But I think I've really been thinking about like getting a creeping fig, like a variegated creeping fig in my house to like climb my brick wall, or just like a straight up English ivy situation, because I feel like it decorates a wall space without being too much work. But yeah, I guess the only thing that you kind of have to be careful with, especially if you're renting, is that it doesn't get stuck to the wall and like suck nutrients out of it. And so I've never dabbled with it before, but it's something that I was really curious with when I moved into my current place. But yeah, I think I'm gonna be seeing a lot more of this in 2023, like outdoor plants indoor. And it's a vibe. I think also kind of bringing in like woodland vibes, cottagecore energy, but not in a like corny way. Okay, last one. The last one that I'm gonna talk about is the Hoya linearis. Don't know how to say it. And I feel like even in my neighborhood, like when I'm walking around, I see in a lot of windows the Hoya linearis, because I feel like it's a really unique plant that once again sort of takes up a vertical space in a way, and it kind of almost looks like hair to me sometimes. But I guess I can't really describe why I think that it's going to trend and become more popular with home decor people and in plant tubers home decor. I think that it's maybe slightly cooler than some of the string of things that people have. I'm sort of personally getting really over the string of hearts and string of turtles and all of that. I think that they're sort of like trending down because of how like fussy they are and how like stringy and sad they can look when they're not really full. And I think a Hoya linearis is like, I mean, obviously string of things look really cool when they're full, but like Hoya linearis just has a different energy, I guess. Like it's just kind of like fuzzy and hairy, and I just, who doesn't love fuzzy plants? So that's gonna be all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed my little Pinterest dive and my trend predictions for 2023. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm a new channel and every like counts for me. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.